There we go. It's recording, I believe. Yes, I think so. Okay, so we are recording. And so again, if you have any questions or you have something you'd like to input, because it's a smaller meeting, feel free to unmute yourself and feel free to participate. Afterwards, if you could send Lee your an email just saying, hey, I was in the town hall and these are my thoughts, so that we can then take that and move it into a better format of Google Drive, that would be great. Okay. Next, please, on our little PowerPoint. Thanks. Okay, so we definitely feel like our kids need something for this VTA season, and I think VTA has an opportunity here where we can make some really great things happen for our kids, even through this virtual, environment. So I believe that it's possible that we could still have the shows going on. It may not be the same way we have previously. So it may not look like a full licensed 40-minute one act show. It might be a series of monologues that your kids put together and you have edited into a format that you want to share. Or it could be a group performance depending on your school district, if they're allowing at that point, because we're still talking October. They may or may not allow students in the classrooms together to perform within 10 feet of each other, or they may allow them on the stage. We don't really have a clear vision of what that's going to look like. So what we're doing is saying it could be we have a group performance, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it looks differently. But we're saying that each school could submit something, and judging could be optional. So we could say, and this is what we're here to talk about today, is it important for you and your kids to have something where they're getting professional feedback from a judge saying this is the level you're at? Or would you just like to have the other opportunity for other schools to see what you're doing? Is that more important to you? Or is it just important to get feedback without placement? So those are some conversations that we'll want to look at tonight. And you could receive, if we do the placements, we could also have a digital emblem that goes to you through email that you could then put on your website, or send to your principal that they could put on the school website, or those kinds of things, saying like we're kind of like the blue ribbon school. We're a blue ribbon school, or we're a VTA, gold school, or whatever. Okay, and then if we did decide to go this route, there still could be acting awards if we want to go with the competitive model. Again, we could do a competitive or a non-competitive model, or we're kind of an in-between. It doesn't have to be, we're still kind of giving gold, platinum, silver. We don't have to do a top two. So there are a lot of options. There are a lot of things that we can do. So what we want to do is get your feedback. What should it look like this year, and how would it best meet your needs, since we don't know exactly what things are going to look like? And then next one, school performances would be booked into a breakout room during the virtual conference. So you would know, like you would submit your materials ahead of time for this portion. There might be other things that we've talked about, even in the high school, where there could be things that you might be able to do within the breakout room that we're not. For this portion, we're talking about something pre-recorded from your school and submitted for that time period. And your school would be in the conference program that your school would be featured at that time period. And they could log into your breakout room, or your parents that sign up for the conference or whatever could log in and see what your what your school is performing. But also other middle schools could see everybody. We always had this dream of seeing every middle school performance. I know Taylor was always like, I want to see everybody's performances. And this would at least give us a chance that we could actually probably see everybody's performances. So that would be great. And then, so conference attendees could see your performances, whatever that may be, whatever you submit. Or it could be family and friends registering and looking. Now, we do understand that obtaining digital rights could be challenging, probably less challenging as companies are starting to realize that this is going to have to be a thing. So I think they're scrambling to try to make those things happen. But so we also are saying, if you want to do original student-driven or director-driven work, that would be something that you could present as well. We've always had that. We're kind of encouraging it this year, that if you want to do a student written or a director written work, then that would be something you could showcase there as well. And just keeping in mind that if you do opt for something that requires a license, it's your responsibility to talk to your licensing company to make sure they know that it's going to be seen through a digital format. Okay. Awards. If we do go with a competitive model where you're getting, again, probably not like a first, second place kind of thing, but more like a, you get a gold, you get a platinum, you get a silver or whatever, and then you get feedback from the judges. If we do, we would have some sort of awards, potentially with the high school and the middle school, even maybe possibly together, where there's just one huge virtual award ceremony. So those are kind of my thoughts on that. Additional things that we need to look at are the workshops. What time frame works better for you all? We're going to be in school. We'll have the VTA conference will go more than one day because, you know, it goes on usually Wednesday through Sunday. But so for our virtual conference, our kids would have access all through the week and not just on Saturday. So would we like those workshops to be in the evening or after school or during class time where you could have a class watch it? Or what kind of workshops would, and I spelled engaging wrong, I'm sorry. What kind of workshops would your students find engaging? What kinds of things that would they receiving possibly digital instruction already? What things are going to make them want to log in and be part of this? And what kinds of professional development workshops, since you'll actually be able to attend some because you won't have kids with you all the time, what would appeal to you to be something that would be available for you? Also, what guests do you think would inspire or excite your middle schoolers? What types of people that we could bring in do you think would make your students go, wow, this is really exciting? And what kind of format would they enjoy most? Would they like to ask them questions like a Q&A type thing, or would they prefer an inspiring speech by that person, or maybe a master class, or maybe a combination of things? So what kinds of formats would they like to see those guests come in and do? So again, a lot of ideas, and I know you guys are going to have way more than that, because we're all full of creative people here in this room. So I think there may be additional conversations as well. And then the next slide, real quick. We've got to come to a point where I need to know, what does VTA mean to you and to your students? Think about it. Like, what does it bring to you? What does it bring to your students? I know for me at Berkeley, my kids is the highlight of their whole year. VTA for them is the biggest moment of their year. And I take 8th graders only, and I've always, you know, and for years it's been like those kids who have really put their heart into the theater department. And this is my way of saying, I'm going to spend, you know, 20 hours of rehearsal time with you at this small little group that no one else gets, and you're going to get like mentored by me because you're so, you know, excited or passionate about theater. So for me, it's always been like, these are my kids who maybe not necessarily the most talented, but they're the most excited, or the most potentially excited, or the most, you know, but they are always 8th graders. So for my kids, it's always the highlight of their 8th grade year. They get super excited. How do we keep that same excitement when we're not going away and staying in a hotel? And we're not, you know, how do we keep that? Because I think there is a potential to keep that same excitement. I think we can, and I think we will. I think we just have to figure out what, you know, what's the best way to do that. And then how can we achieve that in this situation? What suggestions do you have that you think will make this an event a success? And is this an event that you think is going to excite your students? And I know Deb and I have also talked about, you know, and throwing this in, I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but we want to make sure that it appeals to a diverse group of students, that it's not just one group of students or one part of a state or one part of the, you know, our population that is excited by it. We want to make sure that we're very diverse in what we offer for our students. Okay, yeah.
I'm going to throw a couple of other talking points out there for you to think about. There are a couple of benefits to going virtual, and one is cost. Or let me say it another way. It becomes very, very, very affordable, particularly for schools and students who are not able to usually attend this kind of an event. So one thing I like about virtual is the access. It's kind of unlimited. And we've been talking about some really, really, really affordable price structuring and I don't have to get into that with you right now, but it's definitely at the forefront of our thoughts. The other thing, in that with the high school teachers, we're really sort of interested in this idea of original work and student-centered work. And maybe what you're showing is not a finished piece. Maybe what you're showing is acting in action, or the thing that your students love to do the most, the thing that, whatever the creative juice is, that's kind of what we're thinking we want to invite people to bring to conference. And one of the things, I think the strongest benefits of VTA is the sense of community that the students develop with each other. And that's why they like to go to conference, because they get to meet people from all over the place. So what kind of events can we create that give your students those opportunities? And that's where we were, just kind of imagining all kinds of stuff. We also talked a little bit about, and I feel like you were in this meeting, so I apologize if you weren't, Linda or Lee. Maybe one day is high school programming, and then one day is strictly middle school programming. And then at the end of the whole thing, there's a keynote and some announcements, and we all go home. That'll make it easier, because in the past we've had so many things that have to be scheduled over top of each other that I feel middle school doesn't always get the best of what we have to offer. I'm just going to put out and I teach middle and high school, so I sit in that kind of a weird seat. I really like the idea of a rating that is more in line with what band, orchestra, and choral students get, which is more of an assessment rating than you did really great, so you get a gold medal. In this time when many of us are worried about our programs just surviving, I feel that there's a benefit to be able, and some of you I'm sure are really supported by your administrations, but some of us I think are worried about whether we're going to survive COVID in this way. And having anything that says, hey, look what we did, be proud of us. Sometimes that is a really good piece of advocacy for your program. So I encourage us to think in terms of not a rating, an assessment, because that's kind of like where you are in your little race that your students are running. So it was rating, schedule, original work, student directed, and hoping to make it better than affordable, and community group events.
I think that's one of the things we'll need to look at, because I know some of you, I'm looking at who's in front of me right here, some of your kids are incredibly, I don't know how to say it, they're at a level where they're at even in a competition level, they're at like a gold or a platinum level. And I guess the question is, do we want to keep those kinds of recognitions, or just have an assessment like a score?
I mean, band, chorus, and orchestra do the assessment that's still it's superior, excellent, and those could still be associated with a medal color if we want.
I know I'm speaking just, for my school. We're a football school. Anybody in our area knows that. Our school is just everything football. I coached football there for 10 years as well. But when our theater program got to the point, we started going to VTA and other festivals and started getting those recognitions. I was amazed how quickly our administration came on board and started supporting the program. So I think there is something to be said overall for that, for lack of a better word, for that competitive structure, of a gold medal rating or a platinum or whatever. I'd like to see that kind of thing kind of kept, because I think you may have said it earlier, you throw that back to your administration, it's a big deal. And our kids find it a big deal. It's their Disneyland of the year, doing that as well.
Megan, what do you think?
Unmute yourself.
There we go. No, I agree. I guess it just gets hard. I guess it depends on, like they were talking about with the high school equity. So if everybody's doing the same thing, but then I guess you're still not really competing with each other. It's more for your individual schools and what that looks like for y'all. for each individual school and what you bring to the table. It's just going to be interesting. The parameters of that and what that looks like for each school could be very different. But I do like the idea of having the opportunity to get that rating still. And I think the kids enjoy it. I mean, it's the highlight of their year. So something still a little bit competitive in nature to where they get some recognition.
May I ask a question? Because I've actually never brought middle school to VTA. Does everyone in the middle school thing go home with something?
Yes. Yes.
Taylor's shaking her head no.
Yes. Everybody goes home with a silver, a gold, or a bronze. Every school gets a bronze, a silver, or a gold. Yes.
That's a very significant difference from high school.
Yeah.
And this may be the year that, in the interest of equity, we come up with a system that is, I'm just throwing it out there, Linda, the same for middle and high school.
Yeah.
It just may be something to think about. And I'm just going to throw out there, is this the year that we focus on other things? Because this is a year with a lot going on. And I think, oh,
I have
Lucretia.
a question as a newbie. I'm completely blind about what happens at VTA, you know, like what the rating system looks like. And so my question is really just about, one, where are you sourcing the adjudicators? And two, what are the ratings kind of based on? Like, what are the categories typically?
Sure. We have a rubric that we give to our judges. We have been for the past few years using the same judges that were being used for the high school theater festival, which tended to be a lot of college professors. Whether we continue that structure or we decide to go with, a different way, we have used in the past people who were with Theater for Youth, but we found that sometimes that wasn't our best choice because they don't look at things the same way that people in education do sometimes. And so, they didn't have the same look at the rubric as an educator looks at the rubric. So we've tried many different things. Past few years, for honestly, for financial reasons, we were trying to use the same judges as the high school. That's not something we will have to do this year because it's a whole different situation with virtual. I mean, the way we have it is it's a rubric, and every school scores what they scored no matter what anybody else scored. So your score is not dependent on any other school. If you come in and you score a 90 according to the judges, and you have that gold medal, and it doesn't matter if there's 5 other schools that score gold, everybody goes home with that gold. So it's completely dependent on how your school is assessed. And like I said, you might have a school that 2 or 3 schools that get platinum. Probably not, because they have to score 96 or above. But, and that, again, we could look at the scoring and see if that's something that needed to be adapted as well for this year, or if we want to look at long-term changes. Basically, everybody comes in, does whatever their performance is going to be, and then they get assessed, and whatever their score is, they would get a medal that equates that score. Does that help at all?
Yeah, that helps. I mean, I guess I understand, like, the scoring is going to be correlated to whatever the medal is. I guess and maybe just taking a look at the rubric would be helpful for me to just understand what exactly is there being scored on.
Really I think it's worth also pointing out, you can attend conference without competing.
That's true.
If you feel like wherever your program is or wherever your students are, it is, it's the kind of thing where you look at it and you try to figure out what is going to be most beneficial to your group of kids. Some teachers, some students don't like the pressure of performing and they don't thrive on it, but they do like to come and they do like to mix it up with the other kids and do the classes and the workshops. Some people are all about the competition. I'm going to say personally, again, I think, yes, Jeff Price, it's right. He's like, is the town hall for middle school today? It's right now. I think that for me, for a lot of reasons, I want this to be the year that we talk about growth and quality and less about, I got a higher score than you did. And
usually they don't.
I think that's just me.
They don't usually know what the other school scores.
I mean, well, you do. You understand when you put something up on a screen and school A has a platinum and school B has a bronze, and there it is. Now, you know what? I'm going to kind of go with what everybody says they want to do, but I think it's worth taking a look at that. I also think it wouldn't be, is it against the rules for, you would think I would know the answer to this. I'm sorry. Watch me reveal. Teachers don't get to see the rubric until after they get their scores back, correct?
No, teachers are given the rubric right up front.
Okay, so like maybe we should be looking at the rubric and kind of revisiting it or visiting it or
Well,
asking
maybe
for
a slightly different rubric this year if we're not doing a one act. If they're just doing whatever, we might have to do a more general rubric. Like it might have to just be really generalized, fit almost like any type of performance, like a more performance rubric as opposed to a one act play rubric. So if we are going to do anything this year, it's going to have to be modified because our other one is very specific for a one act play.
Okay.
And it's very detailed too. I mean, I liked it because, it's the fact that we were talking about getting ratings, that technically your platinum, gold, that is a rating, that's where your school rates. That's why there's not just one gold medalist or whatever. And I like that. I like the system, the way it's set up.
You have something in the chat from Jana, who says she's really skeptical that she'd even be able to put together a performance by October. And Jana, like seriously, I think there's so much unknown about the school year right now for most of us. None of us know really. So I would say your options could be maybe not do it, or maybe think of it as a share. Maybe think of it as an opportunity to just, whatever's happening in your classroom is what we get, you gets evaluated, for lack of a better word. Taylor, you got your hand up.
I wonder if we thought about it in the model of the iTheatrics Festival that we did one year for the middle school, which was the kids came together, they learned material, and they performed at the end. And I know it's wacky and virtual, but several of us are working in that arena right now, figuring it out. But that would certainly build the community, the coming together. And I know that a lot of kids really love, and teachers, I love competition, but I wonder if that would be an option maybe for people that don't want to prepare something. You can bring your kids and have a way for them to come together and perform.
I like
we
it.
could have both.
Yeah.
I think we could
Well,
have
that
both.
would be a great, that would be a really cool activity
Yeah.
to offer up additionally.
Yeah, I think that you could have both, because if you remember that year that we did the iTheatrics, we did both. We did the regular, where you were scored, and then they had the day where they came together. So we kind of did, and I think it was very successful doing both. I think it was really great.
Did that kind of morph into what Disney Slam is now?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think we had Disney Slam at that point.
No.
So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there's an event that's directed primarily at middle school students, although high school students love it too. They come together, they get a choice of songs, they get divided up into teams with a student choreographer, a student director, and a student musical director. They get given 45 minutes to go off in a room and learn this thing, and then they present. And I forget how, I think there are judges for that. But it mixes up the kids from, it's pretty involved. And I guess we could do a version of that. Thank you, Taylor. We could do something like that as well. And Jana says, I also see that it could be inspiring for kids to see what sort of virtual performances are possible. Jana, worst case scenario is this is the world we're going to be living in this year,
Yeah, it's true. I was just thinking about it. Even though I'm terrified to put something together myself, I might change my mind by October. But I could see, like, if I got my kids to watch several other programs that did do things, they might be like, oh, well, we can do that. And look how cool that is. I think they might get really jazzed by it. I don't know about that competition piece this year, but I could see a showcase being really inspiring.
That's a good word. I like that word. Yes, sir.
I would offer that there are several groups right now working on Qui Gwen's She Kills Monsters in a virtual format. and he gave permission to let that happen. So if you kind of keep your eye out, do some searches, I bet that you could find one that's going to happen soon, and then direct your students to it so they could see how something like that could be exciting.
If I might also add, it's just something to think about. We used to attend a festival that got really unique because there were a lot of schools that didn't have a lot of kids involved in their theater programs. They actually had categories where, whether it be monologues or duet acting or group acting, I mean, they had like 12 different categories that they really broke it out huge. Everything from, group musical to all these things, and the kids would actually do these different individual things. And that's also a thought if we really wanted to break it out to make sure that everybody could participate in some way. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, the Mississippi Theater Association has individual events that are solo monologue, duet monologue, singing versions, tech versions. So, that might be a good way to create more involvement.
I know that high schools have that for forensics. It's a whole separate world, but a lot of theater kids overlap.
The thespians do too. We're also part of International Thespian Society. And when we go to Virginia Thespian Society, they have individual events that kids compete in, which is kind of cool, but it's a lot probably.
I mean, I think something to think about is that what the students want and what we think might be good for this, like they might have an opinion about it, they might not want to do it. They might want to do it. One kid might want to do it. I guess I'm just interested in making sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate on whatever level they feel will be best beneficial for their students and their program. And this is the year we can finally do that. Because honestly, you can make it part of your curriculum. VTA, the unit on VTA, the unit on devising a piece, the unit on improv, whatever it is you want to focus on. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm definitely feeling like it's going to be challenging coming up with all this curriculum that's new and exciting if it has to all be done virtually. So I'm looking at VTA as something to make October exciting and not, oh God, we're back to our computers again. So like, really, what would be other things? What would be something like Lucretia or Desiree or Jen? You don't do VTA, do you?
I have never brought a group to VTA because it is in October, and I do a musical.
That's when your musical is, right?
Yeah. And so I've never brought a group before, and I was thinking that this might be a year when I can do that. So I'm really absorbing a lot of what y'all are saying right now.
My most recent experiences have been with, well, one, I'm coming from an independent school. So there was an arts festival that happened that was non-competitive, and it really was an opportunity for, like you said, it's more like the conference aspect for kids could sign up in groups to go to, particular workshops with presenters and get to know each other, get to know other schools and students from other schools in that way. And then there was some type of showcase, but again, non-competitive. There were no awards that were handed out. That's my most recent experience with that. And then the only other thing that I can kind of think of as far as like the festival competition atmosphere, prior to my own experience as a student, was my work at the Folger Shakespeare Library. So we had a secondary school festival and an elementary school festival every year. And what that looked like was, again, it was competitive but non-competitive because there wasn't a ranking as far as, gold, platinum, bronze awards. It was really about taking a look at kind of assessing what the work really looked like. So the types of awards that were given, there were awards, but the types that were given were more like, most creative ensemble, the No Small Parts Awards, the Get Her Done Award, right? If there are people who, there are, students who the performance wasn't great, but like they like plowed through it. They worked together as a team. They made it happen, you know? So it was things like that. And honestly, the adjudicators, which we had like from all kinds of backgrounds, I mean, all in theater, but you know, everything from college professors to local actors and things like that. What they did was they came up with the award titles and then decided based on like kind of like what they saw. I mean, it was very much about like what they saw that day. And they came up with award titles based on what they saw versus kind of a rubric. And then they were still able to give, but they also were taking notes and gave very specific feedback about what they saw on stage as well. So that if you wanted to then take it into production or take it into competition someplace else, you also were given an opportunity to get very specific feedback about the performance. So it made it just kind of, you know, very community oriented, a fun festival, and it wasn't really kind of about like, you know, who, like you said, who's top ranked and who's not. And all the students could go back home feeling like, okay, they really achieved and accomplished something special and get that recognition from their schools as well. And, you know, again, it's Shakespeare, so they were like given like Shakespeare books as their awards and a certificate. You know, it's like you got this great certificate. It says what, you know, your award name was, but then also here's your copy of Macbeth. You know, so that's how that looked. And so as you're thinking about, you know, thinking in terms of what awards, how they could look differently, it might be something to, you know, consider.
I will say that one of the things my kids love about VTA is we have the competition aspect, but then everything else is a party, you know, whether it's the sessions they go to, the social interactions they get, all those different things. So that's what I love about VTA is it's like a higher level thing that most middle schoolers will never get to do, you know, and then also there's all the fun elements. And I like the fact that it kind of addresses, in its current format anyway, kind of addresses everything in some way. And that's why we love coming to, we're relatively new. I think we've only done it 3 times, 3 years in a row. And we love it. I mean, our kids, even now, I've met a bunch of my kids today, and it's the first question they all ask, are we going to VTA? What's happening to VTA?
So you're going to tell them that VTA is coming to them.
Yeah. So like I said, but that's what I love about the VTA. When Jim actually talked me into coming the first time, I fell in love with from the first time I went.
Yeah. And my kids love cheering for all the other schools. Like when everybody's in the award ceremonies and they're announcing, and my kids are like, yeah. And they're like, 1 year Brookville. I don't know if they thought they were going to say Berkeley, but they said Brookville. And my kids are like screaming at the top. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, you know, they said Brookville. And they're like, oh, Brookville. So they do cheer for each other and have a lot of fun.
So can we so obviously this idea of competition there's a lot around it. So all I think I can say is that we're going to find a way to make that, if it's very important to a lot of people, we'll try to keep some of the spirit of that. But in order to utilize our accessibility, I think maybe we want to modify that in some way. Because let's face it, it's going to be really hard to have competition when you don't have all these tools available to you. So it really becomes about, well, how do you best want to showcase your students? What do they want to do? So I'm just saying that this year that might be more of a focus, but hearing the competitive spirit has not died. That's probably a good thing. What's next on that list?
I'm sorry. If you're looking at equity, I mean, you know, you really do have to look at try to take into consideration what are the resources of each individual school that would want to attend. And again, is this an opportunity to bring schools to VTA? Again, first timer it would be for me, but I know my school has been many times. Right. But you know, is it an opportunity to appeal to schools who would not typically attend?
It is absolutely an opportunity. Desiree, do you want to speak, or were you just like, yes, sister?
Yeah, that's what I was, me and Lucretia were thinking the same thing. That's what I was about to say is that I haven't taken my group yet because we couldn't afford it. It's a brand new theater program in the heart of Richmond City. I started with $0 with my theater program. And right now I think I only have 200. And was that going to get us a VTA this year if it wasn't virtual? No. So another year where we wouldn't have had the opportunity to go. So this is the opportunity that everybody can take. And yes, I love competition. I was a VTA kid. I got first place twice. But in the sense of that, it's theater, you are celebrating. You are celebrating each other. You are celebrating what we do. I don't know if anybody saw like the NFL draft, how like they showed each other's like families, and like each time they went to their families, they're like, yeah. And I think that would be like amazing if we had like a shout out moment and we just like had like our school spirit and everything, and that way the kids can see each other, we can act funny. Yeah, but and that way it's less competition and more of, wow, we did something that a lot of people are asking me, how are you going to do a show? I don't know, but we're going to do something. Something is going to get done. So I think we should celebrate what we are doing, but celebrate with our students and to let our students know that, yes, it's not going to be the same. We're not going to be all together at once, but we are creating this environment of love, diversity, respect for each other, and to have fun for that weekend too. I mean, that was a highlight from, I can remember VTA when I was in middle school and high school, and that was the highlight like of my school year, like VTA.
The thing about this year for us is really how are we together when we are apart? And that's a big thing about the reality we're all living now anyway. You know, how can we be together while separated? But seriously, I want to see if there's anything else on that list, Linda, on that PowerPoint.
Can we bring the PowerPoint back up? Oh, and I did want to address something that came up in our chat with the high school. Somebody suggested that we have schools team up as like sister schools, and before the conference and after the conference, and that they write and encourage each other or say something to each other or get to know each other, and it be sent to the school, and the teacher would then distribute the information, or it could happen during class that they have communication or whatever. Somebody suggested at the high school, and I thought that was a great idea. Did we go through the other one? Is there one more or no? No, I guess not. I guess that was it.
Well, no, I mean, like workshops, guests, professional development.
Yeah.
What excites you? What would you like? What do you think your kids would like?
What time frame? Are we thinking that it would be better for you all during school hours, after school, or in the evening? Which is going to work better for your population?
I don't know if we know what school hours are yet.
It's true.
But I would think during school would be great, because then I don't have to come up with a lesson that day. Our lesson today is we go into VTA. But I mean, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that, unless everybody's school schedules get crammed and you can't pull your kids from their core time.
Is there any option this year to have some of the workshops or some pieces and parts, maybe the guest speakers or something recorded that we could listen to, like with our class when we did have them available? Does that make sense?
I don't see why we couldn't do that.
I mean, that wouldn't be the whole thing, obviously, but there might be some key elements that we could, have recorded so that we could share them with our class whenever we're able, like as a lesson plan type situation.
I think there might be particularly workshops that might fit the bill. Like, Charles Wax does his stage combat, and you really want your kids want to do stage combat. Jana, the only thing I would say is we would probably make it available only for the duration of the conference.
That makes sense.
I did want to jump in for just a sec. Hi, Courtney. And say, for me, I would think after school would be better. Obviously dependent on what our schedules look like, but I know that, all of my strongest kids and kids that I would love to involve are not all in the same class. So it would be great to be able to have a set time where I can gather them all together and do that.
This is like just a weird thought. And I don't even know if my principal would go for it. What about an in-school field trip? to
That'd be
do
fun.
VTA.
I like that.
Are we allowed to, but I guess it would depend on if we're allowed assemblies or not, if they consider it an assembly.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that is true. And I think each division will have its own rules and challenges. And to Taylor's point, none of us really know what the schedule is going to look like. And that may drive a lot of our programming. You know, we may have to have things available at more than one time.
Yeah.
My concern with like the evening hours, what I've run into trying to teach online is that there's one computer in the house and everyone in the family needs to be on it and everybody's got to do their work. And there's not a lot of time left over for fun Zooming or whatever platform we end up using. So evenings, tricky, maybe after school, but you know, it's kind of like class time, you have a captured audience, you know? So, but I think we're gonna have to be flexible with our scheduling. Anybody
That's
else
like,
have any thoughts on scheduling?
We
well, it's
could,
like at my
I
school, it's like you
was
said, depending on what it is. I mean, we could actually get out. I could get my kids and just put them in the same room for a couple of days, you know, and do the conference together. But that's not every school. I know that's, you know.
Right.
well, what about if we just keep it on primarily if we were talking about like an all day pretty much event, all of the performances for middle school could be on back to back on Saturday,
Mhm,
like we have previously on
mhm.
that Saturday. So then we're not worried about in school or out of school. We could just do the Saturday.
Mhm.
I really want to lobby for things that happen within the frame of the school week, because I think some of
mhm,
our students, Desiree, speak.
I was just about to say that. I was going to say if we want to create this bond for our middle schoolers, if we have things on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of schools may not be available to be there. So they would do all of this work and prepare, and then Saturday hits, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't get to watch my performance because I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a phone. I had to go with
I
mom
am
to
concerned.
Publix.
I'm concerned about that as well.
Yeah, so I'm definitely suggesting, I know we don't know what school is going to look like, if we're going to be in class or virtual, but I do think if we can to have, like, I know for me, I'm doing my own in-school field trips, but that's just me as a teacher rolling out a red carpet, having individual popcorn and candies, and I asked some of my artist friends to make master classes for me. And twice a month, I would show them that video of their master class, and we get to get dressed up, learn about theater etiquette, and we get to watch this master class and then talk about the class after. So that's what I'm doing for like my field trips. But I would say if artists are available to pre-record, and that way we can like show like the VTA content or something. But I would definitely say please during school hours. The best that we can, because we really don't know
And I think
what's
we could
going to
schedule
happen.
it. I think that if, let's say, Courtney, I think was the one who mentioned after school would be better. Well, maybe her stuff is after school, you know, her performance time or her assessment time, or you know, we run into this a lot at VTA when people want to do everything and they just can't, and they got to kind of figure it out. So I guess this conversation is very helpful, because then we sit down and we go, how can the most people get the most of what they need? So it's some combination, I think, of during the school week with some after school, but anything really substantial, we're going to try to keep within that framework of the school week, I think.
And for performances, were we thinking that they are streamed or recorded and sent in?
Recorded and sent in. Streaming is a whole bucket of challenges.
Yeah, just
Especially for,
rights wise, most people are willing to give you streaming rights, but they're not willing to give you recording rights.
well, I think the challenge with streaming is not every school has that capacity or capability. And so then you're excluding some of our schools that don't have that technology completely. Maybe those schools, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say streaming for those who have that capability, and then I don't
But
know.
there's your issue of equity.
There's the
So,
equity issue.
okay. Jana, going back to the chat, Jen says, okay, let's see. Are the performances a recordable option available for, I would say yes, Jana. We'd have to really kind of work that scheduling specifically because we might have families or, you know, people that want to see things. And again, well, we'll talk about the pricing in a minute because the goal is to make it very, very affordable. But I think for every person, like it could be like an add-on kind of a card. You get basic, and then as you want to do things, you can add them on. But we can talk about that in a minute. Then we could show them when it's good for us, as in that's an interesting thought about having. And I don't really know what the answer to that is. If each school could have a recording of their own performance.
I
Well,
was
they have to
talking
say
about some of the performances being, if they were recorded, we could show them, like I could show them to my specific class that I choose. Courtney could show it at a different time to the kids that she wanted. I think we might get more value. The chances of, I guess, everybody being able to view all of them at a specific time is trickier. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Again, I think maybe for the length of conference, Jana.
Right. Just like a specified time that we could, you know, pick certain things that we want to share with our classes. Because we'd have no idea like when our classes are even going to be, or if we're going to have them every day. So that the chances that the VTA is going to be presenting something when I have the right kids online at that time or in my room or wherever I have them, you know, I think it would be great to have at least some of the material that the VTA is bringing to these kids, that some of it we have a little flexibility when we can tune into it. I'm sure that can't be everything,
that's
but
very valuable. I think we really need to look at that. And again, I would say we'll look at it within the parameters of what the days that conference actually is. Then we have Lee suggesting, is there value to having a full week of programming Monday through Friday? Desiree says Wednesday through Friday. I don't know your first name, Mr. Jones from Liberty.
Ray.
Oh, Ray. Okay. And then he's saying that recorded entries would be covered under a streaming license. Okay. And I'm just kind of revisiting the chat. So scheduling wise, Lee, what's the value to having a full week of programming?
I would say that I mean, and I think this specifically addresses we don't know what individual students' internet capability is outside of school. So if there is a rolling schedule, or they're only there a couple of days a week, and a lot of it is, say, pre-recorded, then that can sit there and you can watch it at your leisure, and you plan your class time around certain things. Yes, there's certain things that could be live, and then I think there's a lot of opportunity, just based on what I've experienced this week, of that flexibility of pre-recorded sessions.
Mm-hmm. And Desiree, why do you say Wednesday through Friday?
I was just thinking like Wednesday through Friday. So Wednesday, Thursday, thinking the same thing. Everything, those pre-recorded days, or some things are live for schools, and then Friday being that like Friday fun day, like all the maybe that's the day that the videos, the shows are watched, and that Friday is our celebration. That's what I was thinking, just because since we really don't know. I was just thinking that maybe that would like be a cool 3 days of like opposed to a full week, because I think me as a teacher, I know that we still have to get stuff done.
Well, I mean, it is, and since we typically build to a big finish, that could be a Friday thing. And that might be the one point in the week where programming is outside of the normal school day because we're building to something big. And, you know, Desiree, we'd have to really work on how to make that kind of stuff accessible to everybody.
Well, and I wonder if that could be, like Lucretia was talking about the Judges Name Awards, if the shows were viewed at your convenience during the week, almost like Oscar judges view the films, right? And our students can contribute some award ideas, or we can have categories. Kids could vote, and then the Friday could be the reveal of, here are the titles shows got, and we could still have the superior and excellent and whatever ratings, or platinum and gold. And, you know, I think using the same language as music can be powerful because a lot of principals already understand that
They understand
concept.
it and they're used to hearing
And
it.
it's not only one school getting the gold. I think going with the same way you've been doing it, but maybe there are some other student choice award categories, and that could be shared on Friday in a big event.
So it's almost sounding like, Linda, like it might have to be two separate events for whatever this award thing is, because this is, it's significantly different, I think, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I think we could do it. What about like workshops or guest artists? What really jazzes your kids?
Combat.
I haven't even been, and the first thing I thought was combat, stage combat.
Improv.
Combat, improvisation. That's the problem. Is most of it's kind of hands-on activity stuff that really jazzes them up.
Yeah, my kids love improv too, but we're a little more limited in the virtual format to stuff that we can do.
Yeah. They always love the dance classes too, are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We are
I have
having good experience with choreography right now.
Yeah.
I also think, you know, if you told some students to get a found object like a pool noodle or and you did combat with a pool noodle, like how fun would that be? I think I am continually surprised at how creative people are getting at teaching this kind of stuff online. So
What about teaching like an improv where that would be one of our live sessions? So you could have like your students on your live feed and somebody else had it, and almost like the improv is initiated by the speaker, and then each one school gets to film in their, like send in their response as their live, you know what I mean, in the Zoom. And then another school gets to put in theirs, or does that make any sense? Yeah, maybe. So that you could have this live session with improv where the actual initiation comes from the leader. Then each school that's on the thing is a small group of students that gets to respond to that improv prompt.
I think we get somebody like Jeff Clevenger, who's so good at improv and teaches middle school, and get him to figure it out. That's what I would do.
I don't know if you've seen any of the social media things, but there's a couple of different series of film actors and stunt people who have been doing these action and reaction shots, and that's how they pass it back and forth. So they initiate something, and then there's the response and the reaction, and then they respond, and it's a different actor, and then it's a different actor, and it just kind of rolls, and they find a lot of creative ways to do stunt work and stage combat. You know, there are definitely ways, and I know that there are a number of Society of American Fight Directors teachers who taught it all semester in some form, and even did adjudications. So, you know, those are things that are doable. You have to be creative, but those, you can make it happen.
This isn't exactly about conference, but it's just something I wanted to bring up because the mission of VTA is really to provide support to Virginia artists. And so we're choosing to focus on middle school teachers this week. But do you guys have any like concerns or things that you are experiencing right now as you're trying to figure out what's going on with your schools and your programs. Any things that could be helpful to you. This was kind of a big feature of our high school discussion because many people were just concerned if they were even going to have a program, what that would look like. And I just thought maybe we would want to open up the last part of this to sort of, what else is on your mind about teaching theater to middle schoolers during this time?
I think just not proving, but I guess reinforcing the idea of how important the arts are, how much these kids need what we do. And basing on the lessons that were done this spring during the closure, a lot of the parents maybe were like, okay, let's focus on the core and not worry about the drama lesson. But I think the kids really need us. And so whatever way we can bring that to the forefront for whoever to notice, I think is important.
I don't know about you, Jana, but at my school, there's a fair amount of discussion about concern for the kids coming back, like what their mindset's going to be.
Yes, there seems to be a lot of talk about mindfulness, and yet here we are being like, we can help them emotionally, and I don't feel like those dots are being connected that much. It's like the counselors will provide the mindfulness, but it's like, no, the arts provide their ease of mind as well. So I think whatever we can do to connect those dots for the adults that need to hear it, I think is good.
I would
I
say
agree.
that there's an organization called Americans for the Arts, and they have a website, and I can send this out after everybody sends me your email. There is a link that gives you talking points for why the arts are important. And, during this whole pandemic, where has everybody turned to get their mind off of everything that's going on? And I think right there is your biggest argument. They're not turning to math and science to get them away from their daily things. They're going to Netflix and Amazon Prime to be entertained, and music and arts. So, I think
And to learn, sorry to interrupt you, Lee, but
no, you're absolutely right.
even as all of the, as the Black Lives Matter movement is happening, like everyone's going to those things specifically to understand and learn about the humanity of other people.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, Lucretia, because I don't want you to think we're not thinking about that. We're getting ready. No, I mean, because I see another thing that came up in the high school meeting, and again, some of this is applicable to middle schoolers, and some of it's not, but I think this is going to be a tricky area for us because we're going to have kids who have a lot of knowledge about current events who are not emotionally mature enough to really process it at all. And that's another way that we help. Now, Jana, to your point, and we're looking at having another town hall that specifically deals with that, Lucretia, like how we're going to talk about race in our classrooms. And for some of us, it's really challenging because of the counties that we teach in. Really challenging, and maybe more necessary than anything else. So that's definitely a place where we can be useful. But I think Jana, this is just back to your question, and a thought I have is like, is this the time when we're collaborating with other teachers, where you're finding the social studies teacher and being like, okay, I got something for the Great Depression. I got, is this, because I've always thought to myself that the argument that admin hears is the one about how we support the core classes and the skills that they're trying to. And the fact is that most of our kids didn't finish their education this year, so everybody's coming back at a disadvantage. How can we be helpful for that?
That's a good point.
There's a wonderful professor at Catholic University. Her name is Rosalind Flynn. and she's written a couple of books on specifically like readers theater, curriculum
Oh, I
integrated
have her book, that
readers
curriculum
theater.
based
Yeah,
readers
she's one of my
theater.
mentors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's great.
she's great, and it's really cool. Like, cause you know, you have the obviously the theatrical curriculum that's built into that, and writing skill set. But then also it's the recall, retention of the skills that they're learning in the other across other content areas.
Readers theater could work really well virtually too, I could see.
Also radio theater with sound effects.
That's a good point.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
One of the
And
things
anything to do with film.
Yeah.
Anything to do with film.
our new
Because they,
SOL, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's okay.
I was just say our new SOL standards that roll out this year, 2020, have a tremendous focus on diversity and inclusion in the classrooms. And there is a whole lot of language about the 5 C's for the graduates. So as you're advocating for your programs, you can point them directly to your new SOL standards. It just came out from the Virginia Department of Education. And you can show them how everything that we're doing in the arts connects to those 5 C's, which are the Virginia Department of Education standards. So everything is like really clear, like this is what we do that connects to that. And all the language has been updated. And there's actually now, you can go like, there's a chart showing what they teach in 6th grade and then what they teach in 7th grade and what they teach in 8th grade on the same strand and on the same line, so that you can see every grade level, how that is increasing or changing. So the new SOL standards should help us get some clarity. I know some of you were talking about advocating with your principals and looking at advocating for your programs. Our new SOL standards are so, you're going to love them if you haven't looked at them yet, because they have such a clear connection to the overall goals of Virginia education.
And,
Okay, so Taylor, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I want, let's brainstorm this idea that you're having.
Well, I was just saying something I think VTA could do is draft a letter that teachers and parents could forward to school boards, to superintendents, to administrators, with some key points about why theater is essential, about how we're meeting those 5 C's, and about why it's needed right now, so that they can see we are this untapped resource and we are the ones providing the social, emotional well-being for our students, but in some formal language that we're all kind of sending the same message.
With the VTA letterhead and making us look like we're who we say we are. I think that's actually a fabulous idea.
I like that a lot.
Jen is clapping.
Yeah, I love it.
Teachers don't have time to write the whole letter themselves.
No, and like, I think sometimes you need what is an outside source.
And a unified
be
front.
heard. Like, we would just bypass we would share it with teachers, but we would send it directly to principals and counselors and school board and whatever. That
And we
seems
have
like a project.
the inclusion piece too is so good with theater kids. You know, theater programs are so inclusive, and that's so important right now too.
Well, hey, Jana,
Yes.
you know that there's talk, and I've thought about this a lot, you guys, that the first kids to come back will be our kids who are
Special
utilized.
needs.
Yeah, and the inclusion kids, like you could be teaching live to your SPED kids and everyone else could be virtual. Like, it makes me think that there's a use for us in that way. We shouldn't forget about that.
I hear you.
All right.
Well, and I think so many people are still mourning the loss of their shows. I mean, some people still haven't even accepted that they're not going to happen. But
I took my set down today.
But I think if
So
we look
sad.
towards next year and go, how can we be useful to our buildings? I mean, that's what will save our jobs. And that's what helps us to remain important in the future, is when we say, how can we help? How can we make next year better for everybody? And we know we have the skills to do it.
It's getting late. We appreciate your thoughts, and you'll probably go away from this and have a lot more thoughts. So if you remember, Linda asked if you would email her with other things that come to you. You're kind of the heartbeat of what makes this division work. So we're really looking for feedback, and sometimes you might think of something that you don't want to share in a public space, but you really want us to know. We encourage you to share that with us. Anybody got a final thought?
Well, I just had a question. What is the mode for connecting us all by email? Should we put our email in the chat? What's the easiest way to do that?
You should email Lee, and he just gave you in the chat. He gave you the Google Drive for you to put information. Is that correct, Lee?
Actually, no. If you will just email me at executivedirector@vtasite.org.
Can you put that in the chat, Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
The link that I just put in is a document that we worked with the Virginia Thespians on arts advocacy. So there might be something in there for talking points. Well, there is something in there for talking points about with your administrators.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. Our secondary division is made up of amazing directors and teachers, and I'm just excited that we're taking on this challenge together, and we're going to be stronger through it, and we're going to have a wonderful experience. But just bring in those great ideas that we know you have, send them to Lee, and that all of us are really thrilled that you're part of it, and we're looking forward to what we can create.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. You'll be hearing a lot from us as we go through the summer. So let's all stay connected, okay? Thank you.